Oleg stretched his whole body with a deep breath and a smile, then closed his eyes as if enjoying the moment. And honestly, he probably was. The air around them was truly amazing, clear, fresh and clean. Even from where they stood, they could smell blooming flowers and a hint of pine. It made your mind feel lighter and your shoulders want to relax. After enjoying the smell, they opened their eyes, and the view took their breath away. In front of them, all the way to the horizon, stretched wide open land. Gentle hills, narrow ravines like tiny lines, and even the big metal power lines didn't look ugly. They looked like strange creatures standing still with their arms out. The metal shapes and the wires between them almost faded into the clear air and didn't ruin the view. But the best part was the river. It shimmered in every shade of blue, deep navy in the deeper spots and light blue over the sandy shallows. The river was the true star of this beautiful scene. In the still, deep blue water, you could see the reflection of fluffy clouds, lit by the evening sun. Trees leaned toward the river, almost falling in as the water slowly wore away the riverbank. The sunlight danced on the water, making it sparkle and slowly changing its color to silvery gray. "Isn't this perfect?" Oleg said. Nina, standing next to him, nodded sincerely. She really loved this place, the spot where they stood and the whole region. It was wide, open and beautiful. Behind them was a small village, cozy and colorful. It was built on a little plateau between the river valley and a big dark pine forest. The forest stood like a wall behind the last houses, as if telling people, "Stop! You've built enough. No more." And it seemed like the village listened. It stopped growing and just turned its houses and gardens toward the river view. Of course, the real reason the village had stopped expanding wasn't fear of nature. It was that fewer and fewer people lived there. Many left, abandoning their homes. And empty houses without people slowly died. Here and there, behind tilted fences and overgrown weeds, old roofs caved in and got covered by grass or even young trees. Their dark wooden walls looked out with empty windows like eyes, silently accusing the people who had left. And yet, the village was still alive. Its only road was dusty, but flowers bloomed in gardens, trees grew in yards, and thin smoke rose from chimneys. You could hear saws, lawnmowers, engines, roosters, dogs, and voices. The village spoke, laughed, sang, argued, and cried through the voices of its people and many visitors. The area was full of life, wild animals, mushrooms, berries, and everything nature lovers could dream of. Nina was never very into fishing, mushroom picking, and definitely not hunting, which is quite rare for a woman anyway. She just never had the time. Though, a couple of times long ago, she did try to join Oleg on one of his trips to the countryside. But she had been to this beautiful place many times, always for a short visit, maybe one overnight stay. Still, it was enough to breathe in the fresh, almost magical air, so clean that someone used to the dirty city air might even feel a little dizzy at first. She loved the quiet evenings, the darkness that gently settled over the village, and the peaceful coolness of the pine forest at night, especially refreshing during hot summer days. There was also a woman here who Nina loved spending time with, a woman who made her feel just as refreshed and energized as the nature around her. Her name was Anna Fyodorovna. She was Oleg's mother, Nina's mother-in-law. Or rather, her former mother-in-law, considering everything that had happened recently. Oleg had grown up in this very village. Back then, it was full of people. There was a school, a small medical center, a car repair shop, and a sawmill. At night, streetlights lit up the edges of the village, and the air smelled of wood and animals. The loudest sound came from the big dairy farm, where hundreds of cows mooed all day. But that was almost 50 years ago. Since then, everything had changed. The village became nearly empty. The sawmill was torn down and sold for scrap. The farm was abandoned. Most of the streetlights were turned off. And the school, where Anna Fyodorovna used to teach, was closed because one day there were fewer students than teachers. But through all those years, Anna Fyodorovna stayed. She was a retired schoolteacher, a widow, and the one who raised Oleg and sent him off into the world. She waited for him to return, even though she knew deep down he couldn't. She waited because she was a mother. And he was her only child. She simply didn't know how to live any other way. Even though Oleg visited less and less over the years, every visit became more precious to her. She missed him more each time. Despite her age, Anna Fyodorovna was still full of energy. She had a kind of graceful beauty you didn't expect to find in a quiet village. She looked more like an elegant, aging city lady than a typical countryside grandmother. You could picture her walking slowly through a city park, a book of poetry on her lap, a delicate umbrella in hand, gently tapping the pavement with her high heels. But even here, in muddy garden gloves, a light raincoat, and fur-lined galoshes, she still looked graceful and somehow classy. Nina had known her for more than 25 years, but she still couldn't figure out her secret. Anna Fyodorovna was slim with a straight back. Her thick hair was completely gray, but she didn't try to hide it or twist it up like many older women do. Instead, she cut it short, letting it fall gently to her shoulders, which made her look surprisingly youthful. From a distance, she almost looked like a young woman pretending to be 70. She had bright, expressive eyes, and even now she playfully outlined them with eyeliner, even if no one was around to see her except her cat. Her lips were always curved slightly up in a natural, gentle smile. Yes, Anna Fyodorovna almost always smiled warmly, even if the only smile she saw in return was her own reflection in the mirror. Like most brides-to-be, Nina had been terrified of meeting Oleg's mother. She had heard so many horror stories and jokes about scary mothers-in-law that she expected the worst. Maybe even that Oleg's mom would forbid him from marrying someone like her, someone so unsure of herself. Nina had always been very critical of herself, especially when it came to being a good homemaker. She didn't think she had any real skills there at all. But when she finally came to meet Anna Fyodorovna, she didn't find a cold, judging woman like she'd imagined. Instead, standing in front of her was a short, graceful woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Nina stared at her nervously for a moment, trying to figure out what the smile meant. Was it sarcasm? Was she being fake? But no matter how hard she looked, she couldn't find anything mean or fake in that smile. Felt warm, and most surprising, real. Still, Nina's mind couldn't let go of the image she'd built up, of a fierce, overprotective mother ready to chase away any girl who wasn't good enough for her precious son. And then, out of nowhere, the monster spoke. "Sweet Nina, why don't we sit and have some tea, with chamomile and a few calming herbs, before you faint from nerves?" Anna Fyodorovna said, gently touching Nina's hand with her warm, dry palm. Just like that, Nina relaxed. Later, she found herself sitting in the house. But it didn't feel like a typical village home, just like the woman didn't feel like a typical villager. Yes, there were all the expected things. A big stove, a fluffy cat purring so loudly it drowned out the fridge, wooden log walls, and a low doorway. Which Nina, of course, bumped her forehead on right away. "Oh dear Nina, you should have bowed first," Anna Fyodorovna said, laughing softly and placing a towel with a piece of ice on Nina's forehead. "You mean bent down?" Nina asked, a bit confused. No, bowed," the woman insisted, shaking her head with a smile. "This is an old house, full of character and tradition. It expects respect from those who enter." Nina looked puzzled. Anna Fyodorovna smiled again and continued. "Do you know why old houses used to have such low doorways? So that every guest would have to lower their head, like a respectful bow to the hosts when they entered." Just then, Oleg barged into the house and jumped into the conversation. "Mom, stop overwhelming Nina," he said. "She looks like she's about to pass out. And you," he turned to Nina, "don't just sit there frozen. If you let her, she'll tell her stories till morning. She used to run the folklore club at school, you know." The truth was simple. Doors were made low and narrow to keep the heat inside the house longer. "Oh, my little realist." Anna Fyodorovna laughed. Still, Nina found herself liking Oleg's mom's version more, the one about bowing in respect. It was more meaningful and poetic. She also liked the house itself. It seemed to reflect its owner. Simple, charming, and full of quiet dignity. There wasn't much furniture. Just a sofa, a large bookshelf that stretched along the whole wall, and a big round table in the middle of the room covered with a lacy white tablecloth. But what the house did have plenty of were books and flowers. So many, it was hard to tell what Anna Fyodorovna loved more, reading or growing beautiful, rare plants. After that first visit, Nina and Oleg started coming often. They would enjoy delicious homemade food, drink sweet cherry compote, walk through the forest, swim in the river, and watch the sun slowly disappear behind the horizon. And in the evenings, Nina would talk with her mother-in-law, always surprised by how calm and soft her voice was. "It's hard to believe your mom was a teacher," Nina said once. "She speaks so quietly. I feel like no one would have listened to her." Oleg laughed. "Oh, they listened. You're lucky you weren't one of her students. She never had to raise her voice. In fact, the quieter she got, the more afraid everyone became. She had this way of almost whispering. And it gave you chills." He chuckled again. "Parents used to joke, 'We'll send our brat to Fyodorovna for a little talk. She'll whisper some sense into him.' In the early years, they visited almost every weekend. But over time, the trips became fewer and farther apart. And now, it had been a couple of years since their last visit. Maybe that's why this time, the changes in Anna Fyodorovna were so noticeable. She looked older, more fragile. Nina felt a stab of guilt and fear, then quickly pushed the thought away. But the cherry compote still tasted just as good. The old apple tree in the yard bent low under the weight of its fruit-heavy branches. And inside the house, the soft ticking of the clock continued, its sound drifting through the room like a quiet heartbeat. It hid behind the books, mixed with the leaves of the tropical plants, and disappeared into the thick fur of the giant purring cat. "It's so nice here," Nina said, a bit too loudly, trying to sound cheerful. Oleg stood beside her and smiled. "I forgot how beautiful it is. And the air, just breathe it in." He looked around with excitement. "Hey, look. They finally put a bench up by the cliff. Can you believe it? Someone here actually got something done. Now you can sit there in the evenings and watch the sunset over the river. Amazing. And I heard the forest is packed with mushrooms this year. Oh, and the next village finally got a proper store. You can find everything there. Maybe someone will open one here soon too. And guess what? They're bringing gas to the village next year. That means we won't need the stove anymore. Imagine how much property prices will rise once that happens. All the hunters and vacation people will start showing up." He spoke as if she had never been here before, describing the area like a tourist guide or a real estate agent trying to sell her a dream getaway. "And look, Mom finally gave in. Did you notice? She took the TV out of the box we brought her. I think that's been sitting there for 5 years, he added with a laugh. "But really, the best part is the nature. Just think, to live in a place like this? It's paradise. You don't need anything else. What more could anyone want to grow old peacefully?" That last word, grow old, sounded strange, uncomfortable. Too real. Too final. It was like the word was hanging in the air. To Nina, it felt like someone had slapped her, hard and without warning. Her throat tightened and tears welled up in her eyes. Everything disappeared in an instant. The beautiful view from the hill, the peaceful feeling she always got when she came here. Suddenly she felt cold. It was like a cold hand gripped her heart and squeezed out all her hopes and leftover happiness. She realized she had become one of those women, forgotten, unwanted, with nothing left ahead of her but one thing: old age. The word Oleg had just thrown at her so carelessly and without thinking. It felt like she had been locked in a cold, dark cellar. She could almost hear the heavy metal door slam behind her and the final click of the lock. Then Oleg's voice broke through the silence. "Well, I have to head back into the city, and with traffic it'll take time," he said. "Hey, I won't go inside again. Just tell Mom I remembered something urgent. Anyway, Nina, I wanted to say, don't come to the former apartment anymore, okay? I mean, you might be in town and feel like stopping by out of habit. But I'm going to cancel the lease. It's too expensive. And honestly," Oleg was clearly struggling to say it, but Nina didn't feel like helping. She had no energy. "Oh, whatever." Oleg suddenly sounded annoyed, maybe at himself. You've got your own life now. And I've got mine, a new one. So, no hard feelings, okay? Just turned out this way. You're not homeless. You're not alone, right? Take care. I'm off. And Oleg walked away. Nina stood there alone with the sun fading behind her, the word old age echoing in her mind, and her thoughts drifting into the past. But when she looked back on her life, there weren't many truly happy moments. Sure, she was once a carefree child, then a hopeful young girl. She had fallen in love, had dreams, had joy. But now, as she thought deeply about her adult life, she couldn't remember even one period of pure, effortless happiness. It was like she had lived all those years not fully living them, just rehearsing, scribbling drafts of a life she kept meaning to live later, for real. She had always thought, I'll fix the mistakes later. I'll write the final version soon. Then I'll be truly happy. But now she had arrived at the end, and it was too late. Like the old woman in the fairy tale, she was left with nothing. Real life, bright, messy, loud, had flown right past her, laughing at her plans. Nina had been born into a military family. Her father, Victor, was a soldier with a capital S. He truly believed that serving in the army was the only worthy path for a man, and for any son he might have. But fate had other plans. His child was a girl. Not only did Victor feel his dream of a family legacy was ruined, but fate dealt him another cruel blow. He lost his wife. Complications during Nina's early birth in a tiny, under-equipped military hospital took her mother's life. So Nina was left without a mother, and with a father who was hardly around. Victor, deeply grieving, listened to the cries of his baby daughter wrapped in a blanket, and took her to his own mother. And that's how little Nina ended up in the care of her grandmother, a brave woman who, despite her age and poor health, didn't say no. She took Nina in, fed her, raised her, and did her best. Honestly and simply. With the strength and means she had. Little Nina started realizing she was different from other kids back in kindergarten. She would hear things like, "Wow, your mom is so old." "That's not my mom, that's my grandma, dummy," she told a red-haired boy with a runny nose. "I live with my grandma." "Oh, so you're grandma's girl," the boy said, oddly happy about it. Nina's grandmother, Zinaida Ivanovna, never made up stories about her parents being on some distant mission or saving people on another planet. Nina always knew the truth. Her mother had died when she was born, and her father was so far away and so busy with his military work that he never really cared about her. Life with grandma was hard. Her pension, Nina's child support, and the little money her father sometimes sent barely covered the basics. Still, like most kids, Nina didn't notice it much at first. She wore clothes given to her by a neighbor after her daughter outgrew them. Her books were missing pages and covered in doodles. Many of her toys were missing arms or ears. And she didn't even have her own bike. But a boy from upstairs let her ride his sometimes, and that was enough. But as Nina got older, other kids started pointing out what she'd been too young to notice. And the older she got, the more painful their words became. One day, on the first day of school, a neighbor girl, the same one whose clothes Nina had worn for years, looked at her and said loudly, "Hey, Nina the raggedy girl. Is that my old dress you're wearing? Doesn't it squeeze you under the arms? Be careful with it, don't rip it. Maybe your daughter will wear it one day." Nina ran away crying. She was in 3rd grade. The neighbor girl got scolded by her mom and wasn't allowed to eat sweets for a week. But that didn't make Nina feel any better. "I'm not going back to school," she told her grandma. Zinaida sat quietly for a while, took some pills, wiped off a thin gold ring with a small white stone, and left the house. She came back without the ring, but holding a shopping bag. Inside were a brand new dress, turtleneck, shoes, a jacket, and jeans. Everything was new from a real store and smelled like fresh clothes and hope. That small stash of jewelry grandma had lasted about 2 years. After that, Zinaida and Nina couldn't keep up anymore. The world was changing too fast. New phones, long shiny coats, trendy platform boots. Nina was left behind again. Even though she did well in school, could draw beautifully, and was the fastest runner on the field, None of that helped much. Her grandma used to say, "People look at your clothes first, but they'll judge your mind later." But that didn't bring much comfort either. Nina made it through school, barely. Sometimes, Grandma pulled off small miracles, giving Nina short bursts of happiness in an otherwise gray life. After high school, Nina got into a teaching college. Things got a little easier. Among strangers, it was simpler to hide her poverty. A lot of students didn't have fancy phones or stylish hair either. Then, out of nowhere, her father, Victor, reappeared. He had already left the army, tried starting a business, but it didn't work out. Zinaida told him, "I'm not going to teach you how to live. It's too late for that. You were never a real father to Nina, and you won't become one now. But at least now, she won't be completely alone in this world. Just don't hurt her, okay? What more can I say?" Victor didn't really understand what she meant back then. Away quietly in her sleep. It was like the spring inside her, wound tight for years just to keep going for her granddaughter, finally relaxed. And once it did, she just couldn't go on anymore. Nina never had a mother, but now, standing by the grave of the woman who raised her, she finally felt that pain of loss, as if she had lost a mother after all. "All right, Nina, I know I've failed you," Victor said after the funeral. "I get it, you don't want to see me. We're basically strangers. I won't get in your way. Just live your life however you want." Suddenly, Nina's life changed. She became the owner of an apartment, and that alone gave her a surprising boost in status. And she noticed it quickly. "Hey, wait, are you Nina?" A voice called out behind her. She turned around. A tall, blonde guy with kind gray eyes was catching up to her. He was actually pretty handsome. "I am," she answered, surprised. The guy laughed, and it sounded so natural and happy. "You don't live in the dorms, do you? I keep seeing you go toward the bus stop instead of walking back with the others." He looked at her in a way no one had before, and it sent chills down her spine. For some reason, she suddenly wanted to hear him say her name again. "I am," she repeated awkwardly, annoyed at how tongue-tied she sounded. "Yeah, I figured. You're in the teacher's college, right? But don't answer with another 'I am'." He grinned. "Are you studying education?" "Yes," she blurted out, turning red. The guy stared at her for a second, then burst out laughing. "If you tell me you're majoring in literature, I might die laughing," he said. "But first, give me one more of your signature I ams." And that's how Nina met Oleg. If you could even call it meeting. It was more like a weird half-conversation. But later, Oleg loved telling the story about how Nina practically cast a spell on him the first time they talked, and he always laughed when he told it. He was a student too, studying engineering at the Polytechnic. Since he wasn't from the city, he lived in a dorm. The city was small, and all the universities were in old buildings downtown. Student housing was crammed into an old 5-story apartment block. Not very pretty, not very comfortable, but no one cared. Real students could survive anything. Oleg saw his situation as kind of hopeless. He grew up in a tiny dying town. His mom had done everything she could for him, but there wasn't much left she could give. Even though girls noticed him, he was good-looking. It didn't mean much without proper clothes or money in his pocket. He wasn't some gifted top student either, though he had tried hard in the beginning. But the classes were boring and tough. So year after year he just barely passed, moving up one course at a time. And deep down he started to dread what would come after graduation. Getting a job as a mechanical engineer at some factory or auto base. Once he finished, he'd be kicked out of the dorm, and that meant he'd have to rent a place, spending almost everything he earned on just surviving. And for what? What was the point of that kind of life? Not that Oleg was afraid of work. He grew up in a village, after all. His mom always said he was the head of their tiny family. And he really did handle things most city kids wouldn't even dream of doing. While Oleg was in university, he often worked part-time jobs, the kind that didn't need special skills or experience. But he dreamed of a very different life, a normal life where he didn't have to count every penny. He wanted to be able to pay for a nice dinner at a fancy restaurant with a beautiful woman, then drive her home, or to his home, in his own shiny black car. He wanted to sit on a plane and fly to a beach or a ski resort. Or just stop after work to buy a bottle of good whiskey, go home, and relax in front of a big flat-screen TV with a drink in his hand. A real man's moment. Nothing crazy, really. Just a good, comfortable life. Nothing too wild or impossible. But how could he have that life when the salary someone like him could get, fresh out of college with no experience, was only enough to rent a tiny room, eat at cheap cafeterias, and maybe buy half a bottle of that whiskey? Maybe he could also afford a car magazine, just to look at the cars that luckier people drove. Oleg spent a lot of time with those depressing thoughts. The deadline to leave the dorm was getting closer. He had to figure something out, or go back to his small hometown to live with his mom. He had seen Nina many times before. The students from the technical university and the girls from the teaching college, guys jokingly called them teacher girls, crossed paths all the time. At parties around the dorms, at the stadium where they exercised, or in local stores where students bought instant noodles, chocolate, chips, and other junk food. Oleg had noticed Nina once or twice. Tall, slim, with a long dark ponytail. She was cute, but not someone he remembered after she walked by. But everything changed one evening during their 5th year. Oleg and a friend were sitting on a bench near the girls' dorm, talking about how to sneak in past the guard. Suddenly, the dorm door slammed open, and a tall, slim girl rushed out, digging through her bag as she walked, and accidentally stepped right on Oleg's foot. "Oh, I'm so sorry," she said quickly and disappeared into the darkness. "Cow," Oleg muttered without much anger. Wandering around in the dark like that. Where's she even going? The dorm will close soon, she'll be stuck outside for the night. "She's not scared," said his friend knowingly. "That's Nina, from the philology department. She's local city girl. She doesn't live in the dorm. She's got her own apartment." "Oh," said Oleg, raising his eyebrows. "Well, that explains it." And from that moment on, Oleg became much more interested in Nina. He started watching her more closely when he had the chance, and she seemed like a good option. Her face was simple but sweet. She had kind brown eyes, a high, clean forehead, and her hair, that was really something. Thick, shiny, beautiful. He wanted to run his hand through it. Sure, she dressed plainly. She didn't have a unique style, but she had a great figure. Tall, slim, athletic. No wonder she won all the inter-college running competitions. But the most important thing was this. Nina had her own apartment. That one fact outweighed everything else. They got to know each other and started dating. Very quickly, Oleg decided Nina was perfect, at least for the next few years. She was sweet, kind, and trusting. She hadn't been spoiled by her parents. In fact, it turned out she basically didn't have any. Life hadn't made her bitter or hard. She was just a good girl. And it really seemed like Nina had fallen in love with Oleg. He could feel it and was honestly grateful. He had never felt this calm and at peace with anyone before, except maybe with his mom when he was a kid. But did he love Nina? That was a hard question. He definitely looked forward to coming home to her after just a few hours apart. He liked hearing her calm, steady voice, laughing with her about something funny that had happened or a silly joke. He loved the way she cooked, especially her homemade soups. After 5 years of dorm food, which barely counted as food, her meals were like a treat for both his stomach and soul. It felt great to put on a fresh, clean, ironed shirt in the morning instead of yesterday's smelly t-shirt. And Nina herself was attractive. He liked holding her hand while they watched TV, touching her thick, soft hair that felt cool and silky to the touch. But was it love? Or was it just that life was more comfortable with a sweet, good-looking girl by his side? Oleg asked himself that question more than once, but he didn't really know the answer. He always thought love meant being completely crazy about someone, willing to do anything for them, and feeling that same strong passion in return. Nina. With her, things just felt good. But for now, that was enough. Why not get married? She was the perfect choice for a wife. There was no one else in her life to interfere, and the fact that she had her own apartment was a huge plus. So Oleg proposed and they got married. Although, Got married sounds too fancy for what actually happened. They just signed the papers at the registry office and then had dinner together at a restaurant. Nina, really, why do we need a big wedding? Oleg said. I never understood those ridiculous traditions. Days of drinking with a bunch of people you barely know, silly car decorations, awkward photos you later feel embarrassed to look at. Do you really want all that? I don't. I don't either, Nina nodded, quietly pushing aside her dream of a fun, noisy celebration where everyone would finally see how beautiful and happy she was. And going into debt for it. Oleg continued. It's crazy. People take out loans for weddings and then get divorced before they finish paying them off. It's just stupid. Yeah, hilarious, Nina laughed with him. And the dress. You want a stupid, uncomfortable, expensive dress you wear once and then shove in a suitcase for years. I don't want that, he said. I don't either, she agreed. We should celebrate something that actually matters, like 10 years of marriage, or at least 5. Exactly, Oleg said. Exactly, Nina smiled. So it's settled. Let's just buy a good couch instead. It's way more useful for family life, right? Oleg asked. Definitely, Nina said. But not everyone agreed. Nina's college friend Olga was shocked. You mean, no wedding at all? Are you serious? Who made that call, him or you? We decided together. We always decide everything together, Nina answered firmly. And in that moment she really believed it. They got officially married and took a small trip to visit Oleg's mother as their honeymoon, though it only lasted a week. But Nina, who had never lived a fancy life, was totally happy with it. A river instead of an ocean, a field of clover that smelled like mint instead of a beach with white sand, an old apple tree instead of palm trees, and even a tiny room where one wall was just the side of a big whitewashed stove, instead of a 5-star hotel. It was all fine for her. The most important thing for Nina was that Oleg, the man she loved, was with her. Then the years started to pass quickly. They worked, ate, slept, watched TV, and slowly they filled their life with emptiness. One day, Oleg said, Nina, I saw my doctor today. Turns out, I can never have children. It's hopeless. And you always wanted a baby. You'll leave me now, won't you? Oh no, Oleg, my dear, Nina said softly. Of course not. How could you think that? Love you. We'll figure something out. What could we figure out, Nina? I know I won't be able to love an adopted child. Then we'll stay just the two of us, she said quietly. Later Nina said, Oleg, we never go anywhere together. You're always leaving for the weekend. I'm just going fishing, Nina. It's a guy thing. What would you do there anyway? I just want us to spend time together. Relax, I'll be back tomorrow night. We'll have all evening together. We'll have time to get sick of each other, he joked. One day, Oleg came home and asked, What is that? Or who is that? Oh, Oleg, please don't be mad, Nina said. It's a puppy. Olga brought it over. Isn't it cute? Nina, why are you giving it to me? You know I'm allergic. Get it out of the house now. Do you want me to break out in hives? This is just like your friend Olga, she's always. Oleg, stop it. Olga is my only friend left. I've lost all the others. Because of me, right? Just say it. Oleg, my dear Oleg, how can you say these things? Don't cry. Just a broken leg. You'll need to rest for 3 months, maybe more, but it'll heal. That's not what scares me, Nina whispered. What scares me is that you'll leave. Later Oleg said, Nina, I need to talk to you. I'm tired of always being broke. I got a chance to invest in a real business. But we need money. A lot of it. I thought, what if we sell your apartment? It's old and small anyway. In a year, we could buy something much better. And what if it doesn't work out? You've lived with me for 15 years and still think I'm a failure? So much for trust. You never really loved me, did you? Oleg, that's not true. Then one Saturday evening she asked, Oleg, are you leaving again? Yes, I have things to do. Imagine that. On a weekend. Then he said, Nina, we need to talk. It's hard, but we need to be honest. I want a divorce. There's nothing between us anymore. I've been with someone else for a while. I don't see a reason to keep living like this. And where am I supposed to go, Oleg? Especially now that we lost all the money from selling my apartment. Nina, I'm sorry, but I can't fix anything now. Do you want me to stay just because I feel guilty? That's not right. But I thought of something. You could stay with my mother for a while. She always loved you like a daughter. Sometimes I felt she loved you more than me. You'll rest. Get back on your feet. And you won't be alone. He showed her the house. Look, Nina. Isn't it peaceful here? The perfect place to grow old. The sun had already set. Dark August evening light settled over the small village, glowing softly from windows and street lamps. From the river nearby came a chill, damp breeze. Nina shivered and stood up from the bench. Strange, she thought. It's only the end of August, but it's already so cold. Or maybe I'm just getting old, always cold like old ladies are. She suddenly shivered hard. Not from the cold, but from one word that now haunted her. Old. It was like Oleg had tied that word to her, as if it would follow her forever. Ninotchka, go to sleep now. Morning is wiser than evening, said Anna Fyodorovna when Nina finally came inside the house. Her mother-in-law's voice, well, ex-mother-in-law, as Nina kept reminding herself, still had a calming effect on her. She lay down on the old but comfortable bed and suddenly remembered. This was the same bed she and Oleg used to sleep in when they visited Anna Fyodorovna, back when they were still together. Everything is ex now, Nina thought sleepily as she closed her eyes. Ex-husband, ex-job, ex-apartment, ex-friends, ex-life. And me? Even I feel second-hand. And with that cheerful thought, her tired mind finally shut down. The morning woke her up with a bright beam of sunlight right in her face. She didn't know where she was at first or why the walls weren't covered in wallpaper. Instead, she saw a rough, gray-white ceiling with patches that looked like a shaggy human head. And maybe an animal with 3 legs. And then it hit her. Reality. Cold, hopeless, heavy. It didn't match the beautiful sunny day at all. She felt miserable. Birds were chirping like they'd gone crazy with joy. And she just wanted to hide from all of it. She wanted to bury her face in the pillow and cry until something made sense. Suddenly, she heard a loud truck pull up and stop at the gate. It honked, sharp and demanding. Then came a deep man's voice, just as loud. Anna Fyodorovna, good morning. Are you still sleeping? Come accept the delivery. Oh no, it's Alexei Sergeyevich with the firewood, she heard Anna Fyodorovna say in the next room, sounding flustered. I completely forgot. Silly old me. Fast footsteps followed, and then Anna Fyodorovna peeked into Nina's room. Ninotchka, good morning. We've got visitors, well I do. And I forgot all about it. Can you get up and maybe put the kettle on? We should at least offer him some tea. I'll go open the gate. She rushed out. Nina forced herself to get out of bed. Perfect timing for guests, she thought, looking at her tired, pale face and messy hair in the mirror. She threw on jeans and a shirt and dragged herself into the small kitchen. She clicked on the electric kettle and sat down, leaning against the wall. Outside the window, she heard something heavy drop to the ground. Then the door opened, and a man stepped inside. There's a word, man. Everyone knows what it means. Person with male features. Nina, being a linguist, could define it better than most people. But a real man. That's different. Everyone has their own idea of what that is. Nina had one too. And for a long time she believed Oleg was one. Maybe not perfect but close enough. He'd been that for her for more than half her life. All those years she never looked at anyone else. Never even thought about it. She didn't need to. So she didn't notice anyone. And when Oleg left, it was like a freezing, empty hole opened inside her. Then into that cold, hollow space, like an icy house, walked another man. And the frozen air around her started to melt. Of course, Nina only thought of it that way later, when she had time to reflect. Right now, she just stared at the man standing in the doorway, and felt something strange stirring inside her. He was a real man. Not because he was tall or had wide, strong shoulders. Not because of his big, tough hands or his strong neck or the light beard on his face. It was just something about him. Something warm, solid, alive. Nina couldn't quite understand what exactly she was feeling, but she definitely felt something. She felt it in her skin, her whole body, and most of all in her heart, which suddenly started beating fast and nervously. She didn't know what was happening to her. The sudden wave of emotions, long buried, scared her. Blushing, she smoothed down her messy hair and, confused, decided to just get mad at the man who had so boldly barged into her quiet, hopeless world. Meanwhile, the man didn't seem shy at all. He walked in, sat calmly at the table, and stared openly at Nina. "What are you staring at me for?" she snapped. "Well, first of all, hello," he said in a deep, steady voice. "Second, I was promised some tea. And third, I wasn't expecting to see anyone here but Vazhya, Fedorovna's cat. But here's a little wild cat. Grumpy but pretty." Nina was so shocked by his nerve, she dropped the pack of tea she was holding. "You know what?" she said, frowning. "You're the cat. And who do you think you are, talking like that? Make your own tea." She huffed and stormed out of the kitchen. Country brute, she thought angrily. What is he, some local version of a folk hero? But even as she tried to dismiss him, she couldn't help but picture his open face, the short light beard, and his teasing greenish-brown eyes. "Wow, you even noticed his eye color," she muttered to her reflection in the mirror, surprised by the strange, long-forgotten feeling that had stirred inside her when she saw him. It was like a tiny electric spark had run across her skin, making her lift her head, sit up straighter and feel younger. A few minutes later, she heard the man's voice again. "All right, Anna Fyodorovna, I'm off. No time for tea right now. I'll come back in the evening and move the firewood to the shed. Don't you try lifting it yourself, you hear?" The door shut, and the house went quiet again. But along with the sound of his voice, it felt like something else disappeared. Something invisible in the air that had made her feel awake, alive, and almost happy. "You're losing it, Nina Viktorovna," she told herself. "Starting to see things from all this hopelessness." "Who was that?" she asked Anna. "Oh, you two didn't meet properly." Anna looked surprised. "Alexei Sergeyevich didn't pull you into the conversation. That's unusual." "As if I needed to be pulled into anything," Nina said with a shrug. "Especially with someone that rude." "What are you saying, Ninochka?" Anna said, shocked. "Alexei Sergeyevich rude. He's a wonderful man. Smart, hardworking, honest. He helps me so much. Without him, I'd have frozen last winter or been crushed under the broken roof. And let's be honest," Anna added with a girlish giggle. "He's quite handsome too. You can't deny that." Nina was so surprised she dropped the same tea pack again. "Oh, come on, Anna Fyodorovna," she mumbled, picking up the spilled tea. "Well, the whole neighborhood secretly got a crush on him. Why should I be any different? But seriously, Ninochka, it's a blessing that Alexei moved here. I don't know how he feels about it yet, but we're all so happy." A few minutes later, Nina finally finished making the tea, and sat there, listening in shock to all the interesting things Anna had to say about the man she met just that morning. Alexei was kind of a local legend. A few years ago, he suddenly showed up in the village, like snow out of nowhere. Or as the locals joked, like a fox in a chicken coop, which honestly was more accurate. He moved into an old abandoned house, picked up some tools, and within a couple of months, the place looked brand new. But that was only the beginning. One evening, he brought out a fancy fishing rod no one had ever seen around here and caught a pike so big, no one had caught anything like it in 10 years. Then he punched a local drunk, Vazhya, who was known for beating his wife. After that, he loaded a wheelbarrow with gravel and sand and filled in a giant puddle on the village's main road. A puddle so bad cars and bikes got stuck in it all the time. Even old Granny Maria had nearly drowned in it once after a party. Alexei worked in the next village as both the school director and a teacher, at the only school in the area. Every morning, he'd pack a few village kids into his noisy car, and off they'd go together, singing songs on the way to school. In his free time, He kept doing things that people in the village called weird. He cleaned up the nearby forest, picking up cans and plastic bottles that hunters and mushroom pickers left behind. He fixed the old crooked village sign, repaired the roofs of several elderly women's houses, including Anna's, who used to be a schoolteacher, and even put up a bench near the river so people could enjoy the view. "He's nuts, what can you do?" the villagers said, deciding to ignore his odd ways. But the truth was, Alexei's presence changed everything. Local women, especially the single ones, all went to the town to get haircuts. They stopped walking around in old slippers and stretched out sweatpants. They started wearing lipstick, even on regular days. The men improved too, pulled up their sagging pants, tied up their stray dogs, and finally started fixing their broken fences. Even Vazhya, the drunk, didn't quit drinking completely, but he got a lot quieter. The neighbors were shocked one day to see him digging garden beds while his wife smiled shyly nearby. "How old is he? And what's he doing here, acting all mysterious?" Nina asked after hearing the whole story. "He's over 50. Just a couple years older than our Oleg," Anna said, and then paused, suddenly realizing what she said and going quiet. "Oh, come on, Anna Fyodorovna, it's fine." Nina waved it off. "He's not just sitting here, Nina, he's living. And thanks to him, we all kind of started living again too," Anna smiled. "So why is he single?" Nina asked. "He's educated, strong, good with his hands and his head, and honestly, pretty handsome." "Well then, why are you single?" Anna shot back playfully. "You're smart, beautiful, and still in your prime too, sitting here like him." "Huh, Nina? I don't know. I just got lost in life somewhere," Nina said quietly. "Well, maybe he did too," Anna sighed. "Everyone has their own story. I don't know the details, but he once mentioned he was married before, and that he has a grown-up son. That's all I know. As for the school job, he volunteered. No one else wanted it. But Alexei Sergeyevich said yes right away. Told me he loved the nature here, the fresh air, the fishing. Like living at a resort. That's the kind of man he is." Anna Fyodorovna laughed. A warm, joyful laugh. And Nina suddenly thought, how nice it would be if Oleg gave his mother a reason to laugh like that, even once. "Good evening," a voice said right above her. Startled, Nina dropped her book. Nina looked up, and her face bumped right into a huge, fluffy bouquet of wild daisies, with splashes of red, blue, and yellow flowers mixed in. "Oh wow, this is beautiful," she blurted out, but then quickly frowned. Because behind that colorful, sweet-smelling bouquet was the smiling face of the rude man from that morning. Even after hearing all those good things about him from Anna, Nina still thought his earlier behavior had been completely unacceptable. Apparently he thought so too. He sighed and said, "Our first meeting didn't go too well, did it? Let's try again. My name's Alexei. And you're Nina, I know that. I take back what I said about you being a scruffy little cat. And even the grumpy part if you want. But the part where I said you were beautiful, sorry, I can't take that back. It's just true. Anyway, I'm off to stack some firewood. Actually, I could use some help. And not just with the firewood. Here you are, a well-educated lady, sitting around reading books and feeling sorry for yourself. Meanwhile, I'm running around the school, teaching 4 different subjects. Math, computer science, geography, and even PE. Sometimes I'm literally doing it all at once, shouting out formulas while the kids run laps. Here, take the flowers." He shoved the bouquet into Nina's hands and walked away. Back when she was with Oleg, he used to give her flowers for her birthday, especially in the early years. Even on their anniversaries. But over time those dates stopped mattering. Later, she'd only get a cheap bunch of tulips from the supermarket on Women's Day. But never, not once, had she stood like this, arms full of flowers, shoulders sinking under their weight, holding something this big and this real. She buried her face in the petals, breathed in the fragrance deeply, sneezed loudly from the pollen, then burst out laughing. "Well, look at you," she said to her reflection in a tub of water. "Still beautiful, still blooming. Now go help with that firewood." And stop feeling sorry for yourself. Later, Nina learned how to fish, how to gather mushrooms, how to pull burrs from a dog's ears, how to make fruit compote, wear swamp boots, drive a car, light a wood stove, sing folk songs, drink moonshine, and lots of other things she never imagined she'd ever do. But most importantly, Alexei taught her one thing above all: how to be happy. Couple of years passed. In a busy city street, a chubby man with rosy cheeks was hurrying somewhere, glancing at his watch. Suddenly, he stopped as if he'd tripped, turned around, and hesitantly tapped someone on the shoulder. "Oleg, is that you?" he said, surprised. He stared at the pale, unshaven, messy-looking man in front of him. "Wow, what a meeting! Are you okay? You look sick or something. Anyway, sorry, don't you recognize me? It's Anton Somov. We sat at the same desk in school for 10 years. My house was just 2 doors down from yours. Remember now?" "I know it's you, Somov," Oleg muttered, awkwardly shaking his old friend's hand. "What, you want me to hug you or something? How long's it been?" "5 years. You don't even visit your mom anymore. Oh, and say hi to Anna Fyodorovna, she used to be my teacher. She's still doing great, light as a feather, full of life. I even tell my own tall kid to look up to her." He paused, then said with a grin, "Oh, and did you hear? Your ex-wife moved into a new house." "Who?" Oleg asked, confused. "Come on. How many of your people still live in the village?" Anton chuckled. "Your ex-wife, Nina. She's now Nina Viktorovna, very respected. Teaches at the regional school. She even has a new last name, she got married. Big celebration. The whole village partied for 3 days straight. We still talk about it. Especially how stunning she looked." Anton fell quiet for a moment, then added, "Wait, you really didn't know? Not even about the new house? Man, you should see it," he went on. "Sergich built her this dream place on a hill. All of us walk by and squint from jealousy. Now, just like 2 years ago, Oleg and Nina stood at the edge of a high cliff, looking out into the endless distance. Only this time Nina was smiling. Soft, happy smile. Oleg tried to smile too, but instead of his usual calm or sarcastic look, his face twisted into something awkward and forced. "So, you're doing well," he said. "I am," Nina replied, nodding. "Thank you, Oleg. Actually, not just well. Wonderful. Amazing. Better than I've ever felt in my whole life." She looked at him gently. "Remember what you once said? That I'd grow old here. Well, you were right. I will grow old here. But you know what? Old age isn't always a bad thing. Mine might actually be happier than my childhood, my youth, and the rest of my life put together. Funny how life works.